morning my daughter packed her own school bag for the first time, she was 4 years old, and I was lying on the floor, unable to move. I remembered the exact color of those tiles, white, cold, with tiny gray flecks in them. I stared at them for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit. The ceiling fan was turning slowly above me, and somewhere in the background a cartoon was playing on the television. The kind with bright colors and silly sounds that 4-year-olds love. My name is James, and that morning, I was broken. Not broken in a dramatic way, not the kind you see in movies where someone screams at the sky. I was broken quietly. The way a bridge cracks under weight that builds up for years, slowly, silently, until one ordinary Tuesday morning, you're lying on the kitchen floor and you genuinely cannot find a reason to stand up. My wife, Emily, had passed away 8 months earlier. I won't rush through that sentence because she deserves more than a rush. Emily was the kind of woman who remembered every special moment in everyone's life, who kept an extra umbrella in her bag in case a stranger needed it, who used to hum while she cooked, always slightly off-key, and somehow that made the food taste better. She was 31 years old when the accident took her, and she left behind a 4-year-old girl named Grace and a man who had absolutely no idea how to be a father alone. So there I was, on the floor. And then I heard her voice. "Daddy, Daddy, get up. You have to make breakfast." I turned my head. Grace was standing at the kitchen doorway in her yellow pajamas, the ones with tiny ducks on them, holding her school bag in both hands. Her hair was unbrushed. She'd tried to put on her shoes herself and gotten them on the wrong feet. She was looking at me with those big brown eyes, Emily's eyes. And she wasn't crying, she wasn't scared. She was just calm, patient, like she'd done this before. "I made myself a cheese sandwich," she said quietly. But I couldn't reach the juice. I sat up. I don't know how, but I sat up. The weeks after that are a blur of guilt and survival. I went back to work at a construction firm, a desk job, estimating costs, nothing glamorous, and Grace started at a new daycare closer to my office. Every morning was a battle, not with her, with me. Getting up, getting dressed, packing her bag, making something edible for breakfast. Some mornings I failed. We ate crackers in the car. I called that a win. But here's the thing about Grace that I started to notice, really notice, around that time. She was always one step ahead of me. If I forgot her water bottle, she'd remind me. If I looked sad, she'd appear beside me with a book and say, "Read to me, Daddy," as if she knew that giving me a purpose would help more than asking if I was okay. If I burned dinner, she'd look at the charred mess on the stove and say, very seriously, "It's okay, we can have eggs." 5 years old. And she was managing me. I didn't see it as a problem then. I was just grateful. Every day I survived felt like a small victory, and she was the reason I crossed the finish line. I told myself this was just her personality. She was always a bright kid, always calm, like her mother. What I didn't understand, what it took me years to understand, was what it was costing her. She was 6 when I saw it with my own eyes, really saw it. It was a Friday afternoon. I had finished work early for once, and I decided to surprise Grace by picking her up from school myself instead of sending her to the after-school program. I arrived a few minutes before the bell rang and stood near the gate, watching the playground. The children were running everywhere, screaming, chasing each other, falling down and getting back up laughing, all of them completely lost in the beautiful chaos of just being kids. And then I spotted Grace. She was sitting on a bench near the corner of the playground. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, was sitting beside her crying. His knee was scraped, not badly, the kind of scrape that heals in 2 days. But he was upset. Grace had her hand on his shoulder. She was talking to him quietly, seriously nodding at whatever he was saying. Then she reached into her bag, her own school bag, and pulled out a small packet of tissues. She wiped his knee gently. She said something that made him stop crying. He nodded. She smiled at him. He ran back to play. Grace sat back on the bench alone. She didn't run after him. She didn't go join the other children. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, watching everyone else play, like a little adult who had forgotten she was allowed to be something else. I stood at that gate, and I could not move. A parent beside me said something. I don't even know what, and I just nodded without hearing a word, because something was cracking open inside my chest, not breaking, opening. I had been so consumed by my own survival that I had watched my daughter quietly disappear into responsibility. She was 6 years old, and she was already carrying the weight of taking care of others, because she had learned it at home. From me, from watching me fall apart over and over, and realizing that someone had to hold things together, that someone had become her. The bell rang. Children poured out of the school doors in a wave of noise and color. Grace walked out calmly, school bag on both shoulders, and when she saw me standing at the gate, her face lit up, just for a second, with pure, unguarded surprise. "Daddy!" She ran to me then. Just for that one moment, she was fully a child again. She ran with her arms open and her bag bouncing and her hair flying, and I caught her and held her tight and pressed my face into her hair. "I missed you," I said. "I missed you too," she said against my shoulder. Then, already composing herself, "Did you eat lunch today?" I closed my eyes. "Yes," I said, "I did." "Good," she said seriously. "You forget sometimes." I held her a little tighter, and I made a promise to myself, standing there outside those school gates, that I would never again let my child feel like the only grown-up in the room. That night, after Grace had her bath and I'd read her 2 stories, she always negotiated for 2, I sat on the edge of her bed in the dark, and instead of saying good night, I said, "Grace, can I ask you something?" She turned over to look at me. The nightlight made her face soft and golden. "Yes? Are you happy?" She didn't answer right away. That pause, it lasted maybe 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds rearranged something inside me permanently. "I'm okay," she said. "That's not what I asked." Another pause. She pulled her blanket up to her chin. Then she said very quietly, "Sometimes I get tired." "Tired of what?" "Of being careful." I didn't speak. I was afraid that if I spoke, she'd stop.